Back in the day, right here in Anaheim, California, Pastor John Wimber started a church called The Vineyard. And the Vineyard was well known to help people understand a fuller expression of God's work in their life and the work of the Holy Spirit in their life. And John went on to plant multiple Vineyard churches, hundreds of them, in fact, all around the country. And there was a beachhead site in Cincinnati, the Vineyard of Cincinnati, that became one of the key voices around the country. And fast forward in 10 years now, since that time, maybe a little longer, Rob King, senior pastor, and his sidekick, Eric Ferris, their co-teaching pastor, developed a work to be able to help, in this modern day, help us understand what it means to have the work of God's Spirit come within and impact those around us. And in this series that we just put together with them in a very engaging, interactive, and frankly kind of an entertaining way, these guys help to lay out what is a new treaty or an understanding of what it means for God's Spirit to work in and through our lives. The book he wrote and the curriculum we got a chance to put together is called Within. Why don't you enjoy now as you hear about Within.
Hey everybody, welcome to Who Says, Unlearning 5 Things That Just Might Be Holding You Back. My name's Eric and I'll be your host for this experience. We're gonna have fun together. We're gonna have great conversations and we're gonna learn a whole bunch. Well, actually, we're gonna unlearn a whole bunch. So, welcome to session 1. We're gonna jump right in with Pastor Rob and the crew.
Welcome. So good to be together. Glad we have some of our friends here together with us today. So we're going to begin with a question. Have you ever been singing the lyrics to a well-known song only to find out you were singing the completely incorrect lyrics? Anybody ever have that happen?
I have.
Yeah.
Hi, yes. I love Michael Jackson, my favorite singer, but most of his songs. Beat It in particular, you just kind of mumble along.
And then when it comes to that part where you know, you're just in enthusiastically, right? Yeah, but you didn't know. Yeah.
All my life, I was raised around my grandmother who used to talk about bringing in the cheese for bringing in the sheave. So hopefully it was a teaching moment. I don't know.
You're like, all right, they're bringing in the cheese. Bring it on. Who else? Yeah.
So the Who song, Who Are You, I thought for a very long portion of my life was Blue Awning. Blue.
Blue awning. You thought for sure they were singing about an awning.
The Who is singing about a blue awning. Yes.
Very good. You do know now that's not. Okay.
So I know the first 10 words to about every chorus, but no more than 10. So I start singing and then I lose it and just make up words half the time or just hum along.
I was looking this up and there's a song that says, "We built this city." Mm-hmm. We built this city on sausage rolls. That was a common mistake. It's we built this city on rock and roll, just in case. It's not sausage rolls. That is a non-kosher city, if ever there was one. So the question that we begin with, is there ever something, is there something that you have believed that you thought was right? You were sure. And later you found out you were totally wrong. This idea that we've been taught some things, we've learned some things, and then we only find out later that we have to unlearn them, whether it's from our family, where we grew up, or things that we just took for granted. We tend to believe the first thing that we hear. The first thing that we hear, it makes total sense to us. Maybe you've had an experience as a parent of trying to figure out what happened between your kids. So here's how it goes. One of them comes running to you all worked up. Dad, and they just make this case that their sibling has done all these things. They deserve the wrath of dad. And so there you are in the middle, in the big thick of this thing, and words and emotions are flying, and it's like this where you buy the first story. So yes, this is definitely true, until the other child tells you what happens. And now you have two perspectives to deal with. And I can't tell you how many times I've been sucked into this impossible referee scenario. Usually both, in my experience, have been somewhat wrong, right? The one you hear first, you think is right. Have you ever sat on a jury before? You sit on a jury and it's like playing truth ping pong. Thoughts and arguments are flying back and forth. First you think you're convinced this dude is guilty. And then more evidence is presented, and now you think, probably innocent. Then another testimony and another, and it's almost overwhelming. The book of Proverbs, this is found in the Old Testament of the Bible, it's full of wisdom for everyday life. And it says it like this: in a lawsuit, the first to speak seems right, till someone comes forward and cross-examines. In another place, it says this: only simpletons believe everything they're told. The prudent carefully consider their steps. So that's what we're going to do together as we go through this series called Who Says? Who Says? You're in your groups and we're going to talk about this kind of stuff. What do we have to unlearn? What do we need to learn again? We're going to examine and re-examine what we believe and why we believe it. Many things that we've taken for granted. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of great discussion in the process. And you and the people in your group, you have ideas about God. We have ideas about faith. We have ideas about life and marriage and the afterlife and lots of other topics. We're not always sure how we arrived at what we believe, but it's likely that someone taught us something, like our parents, or life has taught us something. We had an experience that caused us to think a certain way, and we can very easily just get into that mode of thinking that way. That's the way it always is. Maybe you learned something, from your grandma. Maybe she was right. Maybe you were just bringing in the cheese the whole time and you didn't know. You were totally wrong. Reminds me of this one story of a family. Have you heard this? The woman is known for making a great ham at Thanksgiving. You heard this? And every time she makes the ham, what does she do? She cuts the ends off. And then the husband finally comes to her and says, the secret, recipe. Why do you always cut the ends of the ham? She says, I have no idea. Grandma always did. She goes to Grandma, and Grandma says, oh yeah, the recipe, I cut the ends of the ham off. She said, I never had a pan big enough to fit the ham. You learn something, but you realize you probably need to unlearn that. Grandma might have been right, or maybe if we could say this, Grandma's not always necessarily right. Maybe it's time for a second opinion in some of the things that we take for granted. We've identified some topics for this Who Says series that we're sure that you have some thoughts about, and we're sure that you and your group have some thoughts about. We're sure that they're worth thinking about and talking about, and we're hoping you have some great discussion around them. The question is, are you open to the possibility that your first thought and reaction about a topic might not be the right thought? And maybe the way you're thinking about a certain topic might actually be holding you back in some area of your life, something you've taken for granted that's actually not true. So we're all going to learn, we're all going to grow together, and actually we're going to unlearn some things together as well as we grow together. Are you open and willing to unlearn some things is the question. I hope you are. We're all going to take what Proverbs would call the wise road. Not just believing the first thing that we hear, the first thing that we think about a thing, but we're going to use the Bible as our main discussion guide in this. And you might be at a place in your life where you believe that the Bible is the Word of God and you can trust it and everything that it says. I want to encourage you though, if you're not quite there, then our suggestion is that you simply approach the Bible as a second opinion. A different perspective, a second opinion to challenge the way that you currently think about a thing. The Message translation is a real modern translation of the Bible. It endeavors to express what the Bible expresses in a way that, kind of the way that we talk now and the kind of the way that we think. And here's what the Message translation says of Romans 12:2. It says, don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. It says it in a slightly different way in the New Living Translation. It says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person. How? By changing the way that you think. Then you'll learn how to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. That sounds good, doesn't it? What's good and what's pleasing and what's perfect. I'll sign up for those things. Is there anyone in the room, anyone in your group that's open in your life to improvement? You open to improvement? This is what this series is going to be all about. We can't just go along with everything that comes our way and expect things in our life to magically improve. Sometimes we have to unlearn some things that we thought that we knew. So the question again, are you ready to break free from some of these things that might be holding you back? Because together we're going to embark on an expedition of unlearning. Now, here's my question for you. Have you had anything in your life that you thought you knew for sure, and you thought you were right? Men, we're good at this, thinking that we're right. And then you found out later, probably from your wife or others, that you were completely wrong about a thing. That's the question. What do you think? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Deborah. Our family name, actually, my maiden name, was Clay. And my great-grandfather Clay was just a wonderful person. And come to find out that he married my great-grandmother when she was pregnant with another man's son. And so that's not even our family name by blood, but that is our patriarch.
So when did you find this information? This isn't usually something you find out at the beginning, but...
Right, I was probably a teenager and Grandpa had already passed before I knew that.
Okay, wow. How many of you have had something from your family history that was a surprise, that you learned about that was a surprise? Those are some heart-wrenching, and can be some heart-wrenching things to learn, because you've gone along your whole life thinking a certain way about a certain thing that has a lot to do with your own identity even there. And
it made me appreciate so much more how he loved our family.
That's really neat. Who else?
Hi, I'm Dina. I have 2 teenage boys, and I thought I knew how to do math, that there was one way to do math. Apparently, there are multiple ways to do math. And this new math that they are teaching kids in school, I have learned and had to rethink how to do it and be much more open-minded about doing math.
And there's something about learning things from your kids that's a little unnerving, right?
Yes.
Something you thought you knew. Now, there's other things where we just hand them technology, like do it.
Right.
But this, I could see where that would be kind of shocking. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Michael. I've been married 31 years, and over that time, I've come to realize there are a number of things I'm wrong about, and my wife has helped me understand that.
No, this is her spiritual gift for you, right? And my wife has the same gift. Yeah.
Exactly. Probably the number one thing is understanding what romance means to a wife from her perspective versus mine. McDonald's just doesn't work.
That's after 30 plus years. That's what you've learned. McDonald's doesn't work. Yeah. How many of you would say that the person that if you're living with somebody, you're married to somebody, that you've learned something about them that has absolutely nothing to do with you? Like that's not the way you think at all, and that's the way they think. Yeah. We help one another in that way. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sheila. Growing up, my father was in the service, and my younger brother was born in Japan. So I thought he was Japanese. And I was astonished when I finally learned, no, he's African American just like us. And I just
Wait.
understand.
Wait. You thought your brother
Yes, I did.
was Japanese.
Because he was born in Japan.
And they told you later,
No.
he's with us.
I mean, he didn't look different.
Okay, that was
But
the
that
next
was
question.
my whole thought. Yes, that he was Japanese.
That's fantastic. Oh, that's great. Who else? You can't top that one.
Hi, I'm Jeff. On maybe a little more serious note, as a kid growing up in the suburbs, I grew up thinking, all right, this is the way we do certain things. These are the things that I strive for in life. This is what I should be working toward. And as I've gotten older, especially going to college and the years after that, I've really started to challenge, am I doing this because culture is telling me this is what I should be doing? Is this being driven by my faith? And as I've gotten deeper into the Word, I'm starting to question a lot of those things. Why am I really doing this? Why am I striving for this? What should I be working toward? Is it the American dream? Is it God's vision for me?
Yeah. That's really good. There are so many times in life where you can be motivated and driven by the things that are around you that are taken for granted. Oh, yes, you should take that job. There's more money in that job. But you get confronted with, oh yeah, what is my motivation? What's the real meaning behind that? That's really good. It's challenging. Yeah.
My name's Amanda. My husband and I have been married for a couple of years now. And so what I had to unlearn, on an also serious note, I grew up in a household where money was always there, but also not always there. And so growing up, money was always not like a positive thing. And so through our early years in marriage, I had to unlearn that money wasn't necessarily bad. And so through going through that, I would earn money, but then want to push it away because I would identify my value with that, just in my upbringing. And so for me, I had to unlearn that money was just a piece of paper and nothing with my value. So something I had to learn and unlearn, and thank the Lord I did.
And that's a great point, because I think so many people, when they think about money, they'd have to learn again the other direction of that, because so many people driven towards money, you need to unlearn that. But you actually had to come from the opposite place, say it's not an evil thing necessarily too. That's good. That's good. Now, this has been some great conversation, and we're trusting that you and your group are kicking off with some great conversation as well. And we're so glad that you're with us on this journey. Thanks for the conversation, y'all.